Hello and welcome to Neeti's another strategy chapter today. Today we are glad to have Mr. Shashank Patel, who is also the PhD researcher at Department of East Asian Studies, Faculty of Social Sciences, University of Delhi. He was also the former consultant to the Ministry of Donaire for tracing technological investment and advancement in the region. He has also worked on policy matters and was attached to the Office of Vice Chairman, NEC, New Delhi. Shashank, very good evening to you and welcome to Kootneeti. I will begin
Thank
with
you.
the important questions first. The
Hmm.
Japanese Prime Minister visited India as a part of series of important meetings this month. From the perspective of Quad, the US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken visited first, followed by US Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo, the Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, and now the Japanese PM Fumio Kishida. What do you think of these meetings? And a common pattern can be seen for pushing the strategic plan of the Quad mechanism. What are your
Hmm.
comments on that?
Yes, indeed, one will say, it is a growing chain of cooperation for the Indo-Pacific where India is indispensable. And I'm not claiming that, this as it is the orated statement by PM Fumio Kishida in India yesterday. Uh, see, the, uh, there are, other countries seeing the, India as an important member in the Indo-Pacific, and the three other countries are seeing India as a key to tackle the China due to its geographic importance and long boundaries, which no other has. So this particular series of meetings which you mentioned, if I say in the words of PM Kishida himself, it is the happening in the land where the dynamics of the world, the Pacific and the Indian Ocean, converge. So Quad itself is the biggest strategic asset developed countries has in the Indo-Pacific, which can be used in defense, geographic, economic, geostrategic, and for the global commons. So which can be used in multiple aspects. This particular grouping, and in India is the hot spot where the majors of the group find their to opportunity to their stakes in developing the in the development phase of India. So being a most juvenile in the developmental bar compared to the others, Indian resilience with the partners are attracting them more. But it will not remain same as the Chinese belligerence is rising day by day in the operative area of all the members of the Quad, as well as for the India in its strategic interests. So in my opinion, currently Quartz mechanism is solely targeting a unified statement made by all the leaders, which you mentioned. This is that any attempt, to unilaterally change the status quo by force is unacceptable, not only in the Indo-Pacific but also in any of the region. You know, so this line itself tells us that what objective Quad is seeking to achieve, and their biggest fear is to cater the aggression territorially as well as the commercially. And the vested interests of the Quad countries is to secure their trade clubs and to saturate the growing impact of their adversary. For that, India is the best avenue to put forth their missions on our shoulders. But by the way, Abhyuday, India will also benefit hugely from this particular practice. But I think we are walking on a very thin line, and our eyes and ears must remain vigilant to what is, backing on in our own corridors.
Shashank, to follow up on that, earlier this month, the Japanese foreign minister skipped the G20 foreign ministers meeting but
Yes.
attended the Quad foreign minister meet. Does
Hmm.
this set a priority for Japan?
See, yes, partly. But this visit of the Kishida can be seen through the lens of comforting India also, right? Although Japan again pushed India to take the hard stance on the Russia against their aggression over the Ukraine, which we discussed in our last face-to-face interview. Uh, Through this particular article, if you can see, this particular thing, that aggression thing, Japanese Prime Minister Kishida, through his address through his article in an Indian newspaper, oral address in the Satru House lecture, and in the joint address to the press with the Prime Minister Modi himself, pushed this particular idea set. But through India's national priority first stand, Quad members understood that India will play a better role than them in brokering peace in Asia, as Indian soft paws are more impacted than the Asian measures, with the Asian measures, especially China and Russia. So Japan is trying to get some takeaways in its strategic domain by cornering India in international stage, but setting its bilateral arrangements correct as they want. So this particular informal visit of Kishida to India is not an annual visit or an annual state visit, okay, which was decided by the India and Japan earlier. And his unprecedented decision to directly fly to Ukraine from India is a big message for us to decode. And the timing is very crucial here, you know that. Okay. As the Chinese president is on his 3 day state visit in Russia, and Kishida is flying to Ukraine via Poland at the same time. So Kishida sets his priority. What they need India's presence in Quad, but not at the cost of Japan's peace principles mended in the post-war phase, post 1945.
During his visit, PM Kishida announced a new Indo-Pacific plan. What is this
Hmm.
plan, and why does it matter?
The well-thought plan. It is an extension of what PM Shinzo actually, told in 2007 in his Confluence of Two Seas lecture at the Indian Parliament. Right. This particular, the Japan's new plan is for the Free and Open Indo-Pacific (FOIP), themed together with the India as an indispensable partner, as I told you, because this is the very basic thing of the Kishida's address to the India. And this plan is to actually secure the high waters from aggressors by establishing inclusive Indo-Pacific secured from the confrontation and any division, right? So PM Kishida said in his speech by putting forward this particular plan that Japan wants to extend cooperation for FOIP with all stakeholders, where defending peace is most fundamental challenge. His new FOIP plan, the Free and Open Indo-Pacific plan, actually also proposes to secure the global commons, right? Such as the climate change, impact of scientific and technological development on countries or the nations, societies and individuals, including the geopolitical competition among the global challenges. So his take is that FOIP to be flexible in evolving in a way that embraces various choices along with the growing support and endorsement from the international community. So, this particular plan actually insists to enhance the connectivity in the Indo Pacific region, foster the region into a place that values the freedom, rule of law, free from the force and coercion, and make it prosperous. So, with this particular backdrop, he actually proposes three principles. Right, first is rule making through dialogue. Okay, so it's a type of rule based order, right? First, the other one was the respect the historical and cultural diversity of each country, and the third one is the equal partnership among the nations. So you can clearly carved out the program that the need of securing free, fair, and just economic order in Indo-Pacific is the need of the hour, where the Japanese PM strongly advocated the higher degree of liberalization. And obviously, this liberalization has some vested interest here and there too.
Japan has invited to G7 meeting. How do you
Mhm,
see the importance of this meeting? Also,
mhm.
given the G20 heads of state meeting in India, how do you see India and Japan as presidents of two major bodies, G20 and G7, managing ties with each other amid the current geopolitical scenario, which are filled with
Mhm.
chaos?
Abhyuday, coincidentally, India and Japan got chair of presidentship of G20 and G7 in the same year, right? And many agendas of both the groups are in line with the SDGs. But G20 serves the more to the global south compared to the G7. And G7, as we all know, majorly addresses the economic domain. And I'm not saying it bluntly. If we see their last 10 years of statements they issued, but the G20 targeted a bigger set of domain with more stakeholders at the forum, right? So current geopolitical shift in the power is more visible due to increasing tussle among the regional powers in Asia and Europe majorly, right? But Japan and India both can't address these issues consecutively due to the unacceptance by their arch rivals. We have the common rivals also in the Asia, right? In our neighborhood. So these particular presidencies will be a tough task for both the countries, as we feel. Uh, when there is a divergence in the joint release document in G20 foreign ministers meeting just happened in this first week of the March, right? Exclusion to remain in the discussions ahead. But the key thing which both India and Japan has to remain intact is their bilateral understanding away from this particular groupings. This is the more important thing which both countries has to focus. And if I jolt down some pointers that what is the things are here, I would see the first thing, the top-down approach, which is required in focusing on the people, but not limited to the national levels. And Japan will carry out the diplomacy to achieve this goal. I believe that. The other one, I would say, Japan is strengthening its coordination with Australia, USA, UK, Canada, and elsewhere. But of course, I again say India is indispensable. Okay. Third is the building the economic relations based on trust, where Japan extended its aid over the last 2 decades, like Philippines, etc. So you can see these steps of the Japan in that particular front also. The other one is that was the joint study group for the economic partnership agreement with the less developed countries to not exclude anyone behind. That's why it is free and open Indo-Pacific. That word in open is just for this particular thing to include all the stakeholders of both of the oceans. And the last, I would say, the Japan will promote the implementation of G20 principles for infrastructure investment. So I see these particular things more important and more impactful in these G20 and G7 meetings or the presidentship which the countries has.
During
Mhm.
his speech, PM Modi defined India-Japan relations as a special strategic and global partner. What does
Hmm.
that mean? And they also exchanged views on defense, equipment, and technology collaboration,
Right.
trade, health, and digital. What are the key takeaways, and would you suggest from a bilateral point of
Okay. So let me answer the first part. This special strategic and the global partnership agreement is actually a part of the Japan-India Vision 2025 for working together for peace and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific region and the world also, right? And it is not the new thing. It was signed in 2015 between PM Abe and PM Modi for deep, broad-based, and an action-oriented partnership among the countries. These three words are very important here: deep, broad-based, and action-oriented. Right. So Japan and India actually uphold the principles of sovereignty and territorial integrity. Like there are multiple, like the peaceful settlement of the disputes, democracy and human rights, rule of law, open global trade regime, and the freedom of navigation is one of the important part. So these particular things comes under this particular special strategic and global partnership agreement which you just asked. Now if I go with the second part, that if I see the takeaways, as you asked me, I find three things are very important in the takeaways as in the bilateral category. Okay, the first is the signing of the exchange of notes uh, concerning this particular financial year of 2022 yen loan for the project of construction of Mumbai Ahmedabad high speed rail project, the bullet train of India, up to 300 billion yen. This is the very important takeaway, the first developmental project and the flagship development project of the Prime Minister Modi in India. The second one is the signing of the India Japan Memorandum of Cooperation in the field of Japanese language education in India to extend further, right? And the third one, that PM Kishida actually announced over $75 billion worth of infrastructure and security assistance for the Indo-Pacific, which is majorly targeting China, but serving the global south profoundly. I am considering it into the category of bilateral. People were actually taking this particular thing as a as a thing for the multilateral platform, but I see this under the bilateral platform, that this particular $75 billion, the major chunk will come to India to establish better defense and strategic relations So this is my take on that.
Thank you, Shashank, for sharing such valuable info and enlightening us with your assessments. I hope to hear more from you on such upcoming sessions. Thank you and stay tuned to Kootneeti for more.